Tonight is the first of our Notes on Fiction series, and I'm so happy to be working with Kathleen Sapovi on this. She is um, an amazing pianist. She's the curator of the Notes on Fiction series. Um, she performs commissions, records, and champions music, and is a big person in the new music community. I'm sure a lot of you know her already. Um, and she does solo concerts under the moniker The Exploding Piano. And so I'd love to bring her up to tell you more about the program tonight. Please welcome Kathleen Sapovi.
Someone taller than me was here first. I want to thank you all for coming to this inaugural concert of Notes on Fiction. And when I was asked to curate this, I was really thrilled. One of the first things I thought of was my 5-year collaboration with the composer Guy Barash. And one of the things I knew about Guy is that he had collaborated also with the writer Nick Flynn. And it was really one of the first things I thought of that has to be presented here. So here it is tonight. We're going to start off. I'm wearing a couple hats tonight. I'm the curator and hostess, and I'm also performing on the piano tonight. This first piece is called A Gideon Bedroom. It has a libretto by Nick Flynn, and the music is by Guy Barash. And it's for piano and baritone. And the baritone, Seth Gilman, is joining us tonight. And let's welcome him to the stage.
Bedroom. I was in my bedroom. Only it wasn't exactly my bedroom. Sometimes I think I've been sleepwalking this whole time. Sometimes I think I'm just waking up. Bedroom. I was in my bedroom. wasn't exactly my bedroom. Bedroom. My bedroom. You wake up, you wake up when you wake up one day and you're in your life. You're in your body. And you don't recognize, and you don't recognize any of it. You wake up one day and you're in your life. You're in your body and you don't recognize any of it. In my bedroom.
So about 5 years ago, a composer got in touch with me and came over to my apartment and showed me some music. It doesn't always happen that somebody just kind of cold calls you and comes over and shows you music. But he was really very nice about it, and I looked at the piece and I thought, this is a really neat piece and I hope I can play it someday. Anyway, the composer was Guy Barash, who's here tonight, and the rest was kind of history because I ended up playing this piece. It's a series of pieces he's written called Talkbacks. And they're interactive electronic pieces, and you'll hear more of him with electronics tonight. It's a series, and this was the piano one, and I ended up doing it a few times and also recording it on a CD called Eye to Ivory, which is being released officially on Friday, 2 days from now. You can look at a copy over here if you want and pre-order it on Amazon if you'd like. Anyway, it's a piece that I've had a really great time developing, and so Guy performs this live with me, and I'd like very much to introduce Guy to you right now. Guy's going to do a solo now, and then he'll be joined by Nick Flynn. Guy, do you want to say anything about what you're about to do? He'll say something after.
Good evening. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming out tonight in this weather. You're so brave. It is an honor to open this brand new series, Notes on Fiction, here at a brand new Center for Fiction. Thank you all at Center for Fiction for your support and for having us. Thank you, Kathy, for curating, putting up this amazing series together and inviting us to play in it. And now I would like to invite my partner in crime, who is responsible for the texts in all the pieces that you heard and are going to hear tonight. He also has a new book out, a book of poetry called I Will Destroy You. I think it is available for purchase here, so you know what to do after the show. And yeah, now we're going to do our thing. So please welcome Nick Flynn.
Can we move this thing out of the piano? Is that possible? Or we leave it there?
Do you mind?
No, it's okay. Hi, everybody. Yeah. Just work back. Yeah. Just fall down. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Cool. Hi, everybody. So Guy and I have been working together for about 11 years now on various projects. Every book I've done in the last 11 years, there's some thread of it has been worked on with Guy. It's been a really great collaboration and friendship. And so this book, I Will Destroy You, we're just going to read some poems from it, mostly from this one poem from another book that came out a couple years ago. But all these poems were written and revised musically. So sometimes I read them without the music, but tonight we're going to read them with the music. And sometimes we play with two other performers, Philip Marshall and Simi Stone, and that's the band Killdeer. But we're Killdeer, just the two of us. So there's a poem called Killdeer too. That's where we got the title. All right. Should I start? Confessional. I admit you haven't heard from me in a while. In me, there's a little liar, and a little thief, and a little whore. Forgive me. While writing these words, I was lost in a trance. The sky, wild blue, fruit trees jeweled with ice. If not for what I'd promised, I wouldn't be here at all. You were with me when I found that box in the basement. Opening it was like entering a room and having, at last, someone else breathe for me. No one, as you know, sets out to lose their mind. This poem began as a secret, not from you. I didn't know you then. Now it wears its shame like a halo. Please, take it, rip it up, put it in your glass. We can watch it dissolve. You do know, right, that between the no longer and the still to come, we are being continually tattooed, inked with the skulls of everyone we've ever loved. The you, and the you, and the you, and the you. You don't sit in a chair, thumb through a binder, pick a design. It simply happens. Each time you bring your fingers to your face to inhale her back inside. Tiny skulls. Some of us are covered. You, love, could simply tattoo an open door, light pouring in from somewhere outside. You could make your body a door, so it appears you, let me fill you, are made of light. You start. You start. Yeah. Jesus knew. Unlike you and I, Jesus knew he'd die. Some days, a headache woke him. It lingered. Nothing terrible, but the word hung around his temples like this soul everyone wants but can't find. Jesus knew he'd die. He just didn't know how, and that bothered him sometimes. And then he'd do one of his little tricks. What the hell? Didn't hurt anyone. Didn't make anyone disappear forever. But the tricks stopped working. He forgot why he did them and what for. He confused a story about a guy named Jesus with a story about a father he never knew. And it all began to hang like a moth-eaten coat, pulled out of a trunk on a shaky day. Hey, let's return to the scene of the fucking tragedy. At least we all know how it turns out. Instead of this endless uncertainty, hey, let's sell our souls a few more times. No one's really counting. Those little papers you trade for your sins, what do you call them? Anyone? No? Anyway, Jesus this, Jesus that, God of nickel, God of dime, right? The real Jesus, he was lost. He walked into the desert, not far really. His friends, his disciples, he told them he'd come back. Like us, he said this every time he left, but Jesus never said wait, never pointed to the sky, never claimed he'd rise again, never asked us to eat his flesh. Jesus never asked for anything, as far as I can tell. He got tired every day and then slept sometimes okay, sometimes unbearable. The dreams, the father pointing a finger at everyone, a finger we can't even look at. We'll continue with the religious themes in this holy season. St. Augustine. St. Augustine preached humility and the need to simply be on the ground. Do you wish to rise, he asked. What would he say of these words then, which, after all, are meant to replace us? What would he say of the way I go back again and again to the burning house, the house we've already escaped? These words, so quick, the way they rise up like sparks or smoke. A person could get lost in the sky watching them. A person could lose track of the important things. Spot quiz. What's the opposite of standing before a house on fire, trying to understand the flames and knowing you will never understand? I want to enter into that moment my mother strikes her first match, but I'm still asleep upstairs. In the dream, I'm walking through the marsh because only there, surrounded by water, am I safe. Are your hands the water? Are these words the flame? The reeds are taller than I am. The mud slows everything down. In some ways, I cannot imagine seeing you again. But here I am, kneeling as in prayer at your bedside, counting our breaths. What would stop me from taking your hand then and placing it on my chest? O Lord, help me be pure, but not yet. Even as I write each word, I am farther from God. Sometimes I just can't find it. If only I could have the faith I hear coming from the radio, the way it always knows I'm listening. One day these years will be known as the space between silence and enough. I still have trouble being alone in either, which is why the radio is always on. Do you wish to rise? Augustine asks. Begin by descending. The King of Fire. My first night without you, my wings fold back in on themselves. All those birds inside are released by your hands. Now, I trace my fingers along my collarbone, trying to find where they live. I keep touching my scar. It feels like swallowing night, like flyers for a lost boy. What if it's true? Our bodies are not our own, but only become manifests, like this poem, when activated by another's touch. What if the thing activated is outlined, roughly, by the word body? This morning, my daughter stood before me naked and said her body was not her own. She's been sick for 2 days. Smiling, she seemed to like it, the feeling, that floating above. I worry it's a setup, a manifestation of the addict I've passed on through the blood. My talent for slipping into the bigger thing, a craving for it. Oh, to live without thoughts. No rats in our shoulders, only birds. And the willingness to let someone inside. What if these things we call our bodies are not singular or contained? What if they finally become irrelevant? After so much time trying to be grounded, to land on this earth, so strange to imagine we might simply pass by ourselves for a moment, en route to somewhere else. What's on the other side? A nap? A parade? It works. Matchbox sparks, lightning bugs. I'm completely inside that boy who feels like he's inside me. And this, I want to know everything about the parade. Stranger, uninvited, you come up to us on the sidewalk, my daughter's hand in mine. You look at her and coo. It goes so fast. What, stranger, is this unnamed it? This day? Her life? Our happiness? Stranger, maybe you missed it, but just now, my daughter and I hurled rocks into the emptiness, and we created more emptiness. You know how a killdeer pretends to have a broken wing to lure predators away from its nest? How it staggers just out of reach? If at this moment you're feeling metaphorical, nest can be the whatever inside us that we think needs protection, the whatever that is small and hasn't yet found its way. Like us, it has lived so long on scraps, on what others have left behind. It thinks it could live on air, on words, forever almost. It thinks it would be better to let the predator kill it than to turn its back on that child again, forgetting that one lives inside the other. Here's the deal. If you die, then I will be able to drink again. And no one alive will even blame me. This child is the dark wind inside, but not the darkest. Then I think I'll have another child, a backup, in another city, with another woman, just in case. Then I think I'll call this poem to be whispered by the bedside of a sleeping child. So when you're older, you'll understand. Then I think this isn't even a poem. Those that laugh should get help. Or they already have kids. I will destroy you. Like laying a palm on the door of a furnace to test if it's still alive, I invite you up to my hotel room. Let's think of you as someone I'd meet in a dream, a representation of my own vast recklessness. You're the age my mother was when she set our house on fire. I'm asleep upstairs. I cannot call it accidental, this vast recklessness. My therapist points out that 15 minutes of movie violence releases as many opiates into the body as if being prepped for major surgery. For people like us, it is somehow calming. Tonight, it's Terminator 2 again. Let's go back to the scene where the liquid metal assassin assumes the form of a security guard. We're in the mental hospital where Mom is locked up. As the real guard gets a coffee from the vending machine, the liquid metal guy, disguised now as the linoleum floor, rises up behind him and slowly takes on his features, even the uniform. And when he turns and faces himself, he raises a finger to his own face, as if to point out that they are the same. But the finger turns into a blade, and he pushes it right into and through his own eye. And then he goes looking for Mom. This will be our last piece. Thanks, everybody. Pied Piper. He wanders among us, village to village, hauling his sack of rats. Nightfall, he stands at the edge now of ours, and in the dark releases them. They gnaw our sills and eat our grain. They fill our wells and find our cribs and lurk among our apples. Morning comes, his shingle hung. The solution is his song. Some offer gold, some offer milk. What else to do? We're overrun. We each must make a promise. Those without, what can we offer? A child will do. Just give a name. He'll fold it up. He'll take our word. His smile, a blackened sickle. Morning comes. He plays his song past barn, past gate. The rats now wake. They go to him. The song he plays. They tumble out and tumble in and back into his sack. When he returns, his fee now owed, some sense of trick, some sense of lie, and some refuse to pay him. Our promise breaks, he shakes his head, he wanders off, we sense a chill. The woods around us, dark and deep, the trees around us. Listen. At night he's back. The song he plays. Our children rise. Now up from sleep. And out they stream into the streets. Parade away behind him. Morning now. And no one knows. And morning now. And no one hears. And to this day, they're huddled now, and somewhere now, they're waking. Thanks.
Amazing. I can hardly speak. That was just mind-blowing. Bravo, too. Okay, so I think we have, you guys, there's some microphones floating around. So if you want to talk into the microphone, ask your questions. I will hand the microphone to whoever you ask the question of. Yeah, absolutely.
What are you doing after this?
And where? Yes.
How do you develop these pieces together? Obviously, the poem is already written. Would you collaborate back and forth? The poem isn't obviously already written. Oh, yeah. Just jump in. The poems are really written like we've had this long collaboration, and you can jump in with how you do it, but they've really been revised, like really fully through this, and sort of knowing. I'll like that last poem that we did, like it's very. It has this sort of rhythmic beat within it, sonically, and it was just sort of they're almost like symbiotically created. I think. Sometimes, and sometimes they are written.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Nick for over a decade now. The first piece we did together, actually, I did myself on my own. He didn't even know. I was when I got here to the U.S. I'm originally from Israel. I was looking for local poetry to work with, to set to music, and I came across this collection of political poems called "State of the Union." And in it was a poem called "Imagination" by Nick Flynn, and I really, really liked it. I don't know. His poems are like a riddle, like a koan, like a mind exercise. And so I kept reading it over and over again, and it sounded like music. It has rhythm, it has a melody. So I had to immediately go to work and set it to soprano and percussion. By the next day, I had a new piece. And by then I was hooked, and I wanted more of whatever that was. So I dug up Nick Flynn's email address. Thank God for the internet. And wrote to him that I did this. And back then in my... Yeah, well, back then, my English was not as good, so it sounded maybe something like, "Hello, I wrote song. Let's drink coffee." But luckily, Nick is very generous, and we exchanged a few emails, and eventually agreed to meet me for coffee, and that developed into our first large collaboration called Produce, which was an evening-long multimedia piece, which included the song Imagination. And then we did another piece, I think it was Blind Uber. Yeah. The premiere, I think on the premiere of Produce, Nick handed me a book, Blind Uber, his book of poetry. I'm like, okay, so now I have to do something with that too. And I was looking at it for a while, and then I got a grant which allowed me to really sit down and work on the piece and develop it. And we presented that a few months later at Greenwich House. And we continue working like that. I hand him over music, he hands me over poems, and eventually they are coming together somehow.
They do, like, even with Proteus, or the first one, I had this thread of the mythical figure of Proteus in a book that I wrote, and it just sort of seemed like that could be something Guy and I could work on. But then when we started to work on it musically, it really changed. It's really this deep collaborative process for me, and deep process of revision. Like it changes the text for me. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Anyone have another question? Yeah, that might not have been the question. Yeah.
It's fantastic and wonderful collaboration. I'm wondering if when I hear your poems read aloud like this, for some reason I'm wondering about, or I'm hearing some of the prose. Samuel Beckett comes to mind, and I don't know if that was an influence.
That's cool
on your work, but I'm just curious to know if that's something you.
Yeah, Beckett's a really big influence for me, and so I would love if if you hear anything of Beckett, I would be very happy in my work.
Yeah, very, very much.
He's one of the few writers that I know that I can go back and read. I've read him a lot over the years, and every time I return to him, I really have no idea how he does it. Like, he seems like he's one of the a lot of writers, like probably all of us that are artists here, like you figure out like how people do things. You look at a film, and you think, oh, I can see how this film was made. But he's still one of the writers that completely mystifies me. I don't really know how he does what he does. I think he's one of the funniest writers that I can think of. I just think he's hysterically funny. A lot of people don't.
I have one other question. Are there when you started collaborating, were there certain sounds or textures in creating music or colors that you thought, oh, that's going off the deep end, that's not going to work with words? Or with certain ones, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. When I read the text, it implies sounds and gestures, musical gestures. So I start developing this bank of gestures, of musical palette, a musical palette. And then we meet and we try out stuff. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Yeah.
I love it when Guy will get very excited. He'll create something like from the piece that Seth did. They sang the Gideon piece is from a play that I wrote, and Guy will get very excited. He'll come and he'll show me this whole like score that he's written, and I don't read music at all. So I'll just be like, that's great, that's cool. Like, look at what I did. I'm like, cool. So I have to hear it.
Yeah. Well, I try to sing it to you, but I'm not a very good singer. I should also say that it's somewhat related, but the piano piece that you heard is part of a series of compositions called Talkback. And when we worked on Proteus, our first collaboration, at the same time, another friend asked me to write a piece for clarinet and electronics. So I did, and it was going on at the same time. And then I needed another instrumental part for this larger piece. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And I remembered, oh, I have this piece that I'm working on. If I finish it and maybe write another one somewhat similar in concept, these could be like these two interludes, instrumental interludes in the piece. And that was the second. And after the premiere of our first piece, another musician approached me and asked if I would write for him another talkback. That was the third. And then I wrote number 4, which you heard Kathy play. And then it really became a series of compositions. Now I'm working on number 8. So there's really, the collaboration, I think, goes beyond the works that we actually work on together. I mean, they then influence and inspire other works to emerge from that.
Hi, and thank you for that. This is going back to how you work together. Guy, have you ever, or Nick, have you ever read to Guy first and not Guy through reading of Nick's poems on the page, then gone?
I'm not as elegant. It's just Guy.
Oh, Guy, okay. um, yeah, that he hears it first as opposed to reading it first. As a musician,
Yeah, that's
I think
interesting.
that
Yeah,
might
do
be
I ever like
important.
sit and read it to you first? Well, I think you heard the poems first, like these poems from this book, like in earlier drafts, but then they really morph. It's like they really changed in relation to the music. When I heard them performed, I'm making marks on them. Yeah, as I'm performing and listening to the music and stuff, it becomes this. It's a real revision process for me. So, yeah, he'll hear the poem first. I'll read the poem first. He'll think of some music, and then it sort of goes back and forth. And the poem gets very changed by the end of the process, which can take like 2 years because we've been doing it I've been writing this book for a while. So, and we've been performing this book. The Guy, when we were first together, the first like many years, 6 or 7 years, I would, we'd do these things and work in a space together. But then all the performances were with like 10 to 20 people on stage, live orchestration. And finally, like about 4 years ago, I was like, can we just do something, the two of us? Like, just like me and you, because I don't know how to like move like 20 people like around to do things. So then you're like, yeah, we could do that. So yeah, it's been fun just working one-on-one too. So. All right, is that good? This seems. Did you have one question in the back or no? You didn't? You did. Okay. Well, let's do the last question. Yeah, we'll do the last question.
Okay, thank you. The question that I have is, how do you come up with the plot or subject to your poems? It's just like series of ideas kind of put together, or that's for you? And for Guy, when you read the text, how do you create the music? Do you certainly have like sort of like you want to provoke certain feelings, or just how's your creative process when you read through the text?
Yeah, I mean, how I write in general is it involves a lot of like meditation. Like I try to sort of access this sort of stuff that I'm not consciously thinking of. So I try to get out of my head as much as possible and just sort of try to find something in more sort of subconscious realm. And there's just various ways I do it. A lot of it's like meditation or doing yoga, doing things like that sort of will get me to that space. And then write from that space, write from dreams. But often, there's usually something, a memory or something in real life that's connected to, like an image or a phrase or something that sort of I build on that. But as far as the music goes, I think the poems do suggest like a certain tone. Because I've really been happy with this collaboration here with this book. I've really been happy with the. They seem to go really well together. Like the music that Guy comes up with seems to really. You haven't heard the poems. Most of you haven't heard the poems read without the music. I can still sort of get a sense of it when I'm reading them, but it makes it a different thing. It makes it a whole different thing. So.
Not sure I remember the question for me. What was the how do I write the music? I think Nick's poems imply musicality. He's very musical. He's very musical in his writing, and he's very musical when we work together. I mean, sometimes I really don't know how he does what he does in terms of, the pace and, entrances, when to start, when to stop, without me explaining. It just comes very naturally to him. So his poems are like that too. They're very musical. They imply. I'm not sure about the feelings. I mean, he has his feelings and I have mine. I'm not sure we both read the text in the same way, but yeah, probably not. And that's usually not what I'm tapping into, but it does imply a form, and it implies a pace, and even sounds and gestures. It just I read the text a few times until it just comes.
I think all writers and poets should have a composer, and all composers should have a poet. Yeah. All right. Did you have your hand up? Are you?
I have to have a question.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know if you were just like celebrating or something.
I'm doing
Yeah.
both, but
Yeah.
it seems like we're going words to music transition. What about a music to words transition? Do you ever hear music and then make a poem from that?
I don't know if we've done that so much, but when I go to a guy's studio quite often, and I know his music, and I've listened to his music on recorded music and stuff. So, but I haven't really like taken a piece of music that he's written and then like written something from that. I haven't done that directly, but I've done but the poems feel like they've organically grown out of the music though in the revision process. It really is a big part of the whole writing of the poems. I'll like come up with a rough draft of something, and it'll sort of transform based on the music. So, yeah. All right, thanks everybody. Oh,
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Bravo, bravo.